I need an Arabic translator right now or I lose $850 million. The businessman's voice thundered through the 22nd floor boardroom, his face drenched in cold sweat as he stared desperately at his advisors. The four Arab sheikhs on the other side of the video call were checking their watches with impatience. The most important contract of his life was crumbling right in his hands. There were 7 minutes left before they hung up for good. That was when the glass door opened with a soft squeak. Everyone turned around. A skinny girl with brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail appeared in the doorway, a plastic bag full of crushed cans hanging from her shoulder. She was wearing a worn-out pink t-shirt, jeans torn at the knees, and sneakers with holes in the soles. The smell of sweat mixed with cheap detergent invaded the air-conditioned air of the luxurious office. The girl swallowed hard. Her brown eyes shone with a mix of fear and determination. She took a step forward, clutching the strap of her bag against her chest. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I speak Arabic." In the heart of New York City, in a glass and steel tower that pierced the skyline like a symbol of the American dream, Richard Sullivan paced from one end of the boardroom to the other as his world fell apart. At 38 years old, he had built a real estate development empire that spanned 3 states. But at that precise moment, with the phone pressed to his ear and his tie loosened by desperation, all that power meant absolutely nothing. Any Arabic translator who can come right this instant, his voice cracking with every word. "It can't be tomorrow. It can't be in an hour. I need them here in 5 minutes or everything goes to hell." On the other side of the line, silence. Nothing but the hollow sound of impossibility. Richard threw his cell phone against the polished oak table and grabbed his head with both hands. Drops of sweat ran down his temples, soaking the collar of his white designer shirt. In front of him, on the giant screen on the wall, 4 men dressed in white robes and impeccable red and white headscarves were waiting with increasingly impatient expressions. They were the Al Rashid Sheikhs, representatives of one of the most powerful investment funds in Dubai. They had come specifically to close this deal, $850 million in investment for the most ambitious residential complex in the Northeast. But there was a catastrophic problem. The hired translator had been in a taxi accident on the way to the office. He was in the hospital, and the Arabs only spoke their native language. "Mr. Sullivan," said one of the executives, a man in a dark gray suit with thick-rimmed glasses. "We can try using Google Translate." "Maybe Google Translate?" Richard looked at him as if he had suggested committing suicide. "To negotiate $850 million? Are you crazy? One single badly translated word, and they'll sue us for the rest of our lives." He looked at his watch. 4 minutes. His company, his reputation, his entire future hanging by a thread thinner than a hair. The other 6 executives in the room looked at each other with pale faces. No one had solutions. No one knew what to do. The silence was so heavy it seemed to crush the oxygen out of the room. Richard slumped back into his leather chair, sinking deep into defeat. 25 years of hard work, sleepless nights, sacrificing absolutely everything to build something great. And now it was all falling apart just because they didn't have a translator. Then the door opened. At first, nobody paid any attention. It was just a soft creak, barely noticeable. But then she appeared. A little girl, skinny as a twig, with brown hair pulled up in a high ponytail that revealed her angular, freckled face. She couldn't be more than 14 years old. She was wearing a pink t-shirt with some knockoff logo so worn out that the color had almost completely faded away. Her jeans were torn not for fashion but from overuse, and her white sneakers had holes in the soles so big you could see her gray socks inside. But the thing that stood out the most was the huge clear plastic bag she was carrying over her left shoulder. It was stuffed full of crushed soda cans, shiny aluminum jingling with every step she took. She smelled like recycled trash, like the sweat of hours under the sun, like the unforgiving streets that spare no one. One of the executives stood up immediately, furious. Who the hell let this kid in security? But Richard raised his hand, stopping him. There was something in the girl's eyes, something shining brighter than fear. Determination, hope, maybe madness, but also truth. "Sir," the girl repeated, her voice trembling but firm. "I speak Arabic. I can help you." The room erupted in murmurs and nervous laughter, disbelief. "Is this a joke?" someone said. "She's out of her mind," muttered another. But Richard didn't look away from her. He leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. "What is your name?" he asked, his voice hoarse with tension. Sophia Hayes, sir." "And how does a girl who collects cans on the street speak Arabic, Sophia?" The girl gripped the strap of her bag tighter. I learned at the public library, sir. I go every day after collecting cans. I watch videos on the computers. I read old language books that nobody uses. I also speak English, French, Mandarin, German, and Portuguese. I like languages. It's like putting together a puzzle. The words fit together in different ways and I just understand them. The silence that followed was absolute. Richard looked at his watch. 2 minutes. He looked at the sheikhs on the screen who were now watching the girl with curiosity. Then he looked back at Sophia. You have 10 seconds to prove you're not lying. Say something in Arabic, now. Sophia took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a second as if gathering courage, and then spoke. The words flowed from her. Mouth with pronunciation so perfect, so natural that she seemed to have been born in the middle of the Arabian desert. It was a formal introduction, respectful, clear. The 4 sheikhs on the screen widened their eyes, surprised. One of them leaned toward his camera as if he needed a better look at this impossible girl. My God, whispered Richard. It's real. Her Arabic is real. He jumped to his feet, pointing to the chair next to him. Sit down. Now. The call starts in 30 seconds. Sophia dropped the bag of cans on the floor with a metallic crash and ran to the chair. She sat on the edge with her back as straight as a ruler, her hands trembling on the table. Sophia had never seen a room like this, never sat in a chair this soft, and never been surrounded by so much wealth. But when the screen lit up with the faces of the sheikhs and they started talking, something shifted inside her. The fear vanished. Her hands stopped trembling. Sophia transformed. She began translating with a speed and precision that left everyone stunned. The sheikhs were talking about contractual clauses, long-term investments, return guarantees, and geopolitical risks. Sophia translated every single word with surgical precision. More than that, she explained cultural contexts, dodged misunderstandings, and softened phrases that might sound offensive in English. When one of the sheikhs used an Arabic idiom that Richard never would have understood, Sophia adapted it instantly. He says he doesn't want to buy a blind camel, sir, meaning he wants to see real proof before signing. He wants solid guarantees. Richard looked at her like he'd just witnessed a miracle. The meeting lasted 43 minutes. In the end, the sheikhs smiled, nodded respectfully, and confirmed their investment. $850 million secured thanks to a girl of just 14 who smelled like trash and wore secondhand clothes. When the screen went black, the room sat in total silence for 5 full seconds. Then it erupted in applause. Richard turned to Sophia, who was still sitting there with wide eyes like she couldn't believe what had just happened. He leaned toward her, his voice soft now, almost fatherly. Where did you learn all that? Sophia looked down. At the New York Public Library, sir. I go every day after collecting cans from restaurants. I spend 4 hours there. I watch YouTube videos on the computers. I read old dictionaries. I talk to the foreigners who sit reading at the tables. My mom is very sick. She needs expensive medicine. I collect cans to buy it, but I also study because I want to be something more than just a street kid. I want a different life. The lump in Richard's throat was so tight he could barely breathe. He rubbed his eyes with the back of his hand and cleared his throat. What's your full name? Sophia Hayes. Miss Hayes, Richard said with a tired smile. You just saved my company, you just saved my life, and I didn't even know your full name. He stood up, walked to his desk, and pulled out a business card. I want you to come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'm hiring you as a temporary interpreter. I'll pay you by the day. Do you accept? Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I accept, sir, but I don't have nice clothes. I don't have shoes without holes. It doesn't matter, Richard interrupted. Come as you are. Come barefoot if you have to. I need you here. Deal. Sophia nodded so hard her ponytail bounced. Deal, sir. Thank you, thank you. She stood up, grabbed her bag of cans, and ran out of the room, tears rolling down her dirty cheeks. Before the door clicked shut, Richard heard one of his executives murmur, that kid's got more talent than half this company put together, and it was completely true. The next morning, at 9 o'clock sharp, Sophia arrived at the building's reception wearing the same patched jeans, the same faded pink t-shirt, and the same torn sneakers. But she'd washed up with cold water at the public fountain in Central Park. She'd combed her hair carefully using a borrowed comb and was carrying a small notebook she'd rescued from the trash. The pages were stained, but they worked for taking notes. There was a hope burning in her face so pure it actually hurt to look at it. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with perfect makeup and a black tailored suit, looked her up and down with obvious disdain. She wrinkled her nose like she smelled something rotten. "What do you want, kid? We don't give out free money here. Get lost before I call security." Sophia clutched the notebook tight against her chest. "I have an appointment with Mr. Richard Sullivan. He told me to come at 9. The woman let out a dry, cruel laugh. "Oh, sure. And I'm the President of the United States. Get the hell out of here before I kick you out myself." "Let her up." The voice sliced through the air like a knife. Both of them turned around. It was a tall, elegant woman with heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She walked toward them with a firm, steady step. She was wearing an impeccable navy blue suit, her black hair pulled back in a perfect bun, and thick-rimmed glasses that gave her an air of absolute authority. It was Patricia Miller, the executive assistant to Richard, his right-hand woman for the last 8 years. Patricia stopped right in front of Sophia and studied her with cold, calculating eyes. "You're the famous child prodigy, right? The one who showed up yesterday and saved the contract with the Arabs?" It didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded like an accusation. "Yes, ma'am. My name is Sophia." "I see." Patricia crossed her arms. "Well, Sophia, let's see how long your luck lasts. Go up, 22nd floor, office 105. She turned around and walked toward the elevator without looking back. Sophia ran after, her heart pounding hard against her ribs. Inside the elevator, the silence was awkward, heavy. Patricia watched the numbers climbing without sparing Sophia a single glance. But when they reached the 22nd floor and the doors opened, she leaned slightly toward the girl and whispered in an icy voice, "Don't get too comfortable, kid. The luck doesn't last forever. And when it runs out, you'll go back to where you belong, the streets." Before Sophia could even answer, Patricia had already stepped out of the elevator, her heels resounding like hammer blows against the wooden floor. Richard was in his office, surrounded by papers, the phone glued to his ear. When he saw Sophia walk in, he smiled broadly and hung up the call. "Sophia, you're just in time. We have a video conference with French investors in 10 minutes. Ready?" Sophia nodded, though inside her empty stomach was twisting with nerves. She sat next to Richard, opened her rescued notebook, and waited. When the call started, 3 elegant men appeared on the screen speaking fluent, sophisticated French. Sophia took a deep breath and started translating. For 3 whole hours, she worked nonstop. She translated every word, every nuance, every tone. She didn't just repeat what they were saying, but adapted the language so both parties understood each other perfectly. She explained cultural differences, anticipated misunderstandings, and made the communication flow like crystal clear water. At the end of the meeting, the Frenchmen were so impressed that one of them asked in English, "Where did you find this young talent?" "Mr. Sullivan," Richard smiled with pride. "She found me." When the call ended, Richard leaned back in his chair and looked at Sophia with genuine admiration. "You never make a single mistake." "How is that even possible?" Sophia shrugged shyly. "I have a good memory, sir, and I really like languages. For me, it's like listening to music. Every language has its own rhythm, its own melody. I just need to listen closely, and then I can repeat it." "You're a phenomenon, Sophia, a true phenomenon." From the doorway, Patricia watched everything with clenched fists. Every compliment Richard gave that dirty girl felt like a knife to the gut. She had worked for 8 years without a break. She had sacrificed her personal life. She had endured humiliation and mistreatment, all to earn Richard's respect. And now this street brat shows up, and in just one day, she earns more admiration than Patricia had in nearly a decade. No, this couldn't go on. Weeks passed. Sophia became an essential part of the company. Richard paid her a daily wage that was peanuts to the executives, but for her, it was a fortune. With that money, Sophia bought the medicine her mom desperately needed. She rented a tiny room in a humble neighborhood in Brooklyn with thin walls and a mattress on the floor, but it was hers. It was a place where they could sleep without fear of being thrown out. Her mother, Lucy, cried every night with gratitude, hugging her daughter with trembling hands. But while Sophia's life was improving little by little, Patricia's bitterness grew like a malignant tumor. She watched how Richard called Sophia the jewel of the company, how the other executives greeted her with respect, and how even international clients asked for her specifically. Patricia, with her master's degree in business administration, her 3 languages, and her 8 years of experience was being eclipsed by a barefoot girl who smelled like poverty. Then she began to plan. One afternoon, during a major presentation with Japanese investors, Patricia walked into the room with a folder in her hands and slammed it on the table hard. Everyone jumped. Richard frowned, annoyed by the interruption. Patricia, what the hell, Richard? I need to speak with you now. It's urgent. It's about her. She pointed a finger at Sophia as if she were a criminal. This girl has been leaking confidential company information. And the silence that fell over the room was heavy as lead. Sophia felt the ground open up beneath her feet. I haven't done that. I never. Don't lie. Patricia threw papers onto the table. Here's the proof. Chatting. Emails sent from your user account documents only that you had access to information sold to our competitors. It's all right here. Richard took the papers with shaking hands, read them quickly, and with every line his face turned redder with rage. Sophia, is this true? No, sir. I swear I didn't. I don't even know how those emails were sent. I would never do something like that. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. Please believe me, please stop. Richard slammed his fist on the table. You're fired. Immediately. Security, get her out of here. Sir, please. Sophia tried to get closer, but 2 security guards had already grabbed her by the arms. I didn't do anything, I swear, please listen to me. But no one was listening. They dragged her out of the room while she screamed and cried her worn-out shoes, leaving marks on the polished floor. The door closed with a final slam. Patricia allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction before returning to her seat, her face perfectly composed into a mask of professional concern. 3 days later, Sophia was back on the streets, collecting cans under the scorching summer, her hands bleeding and her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Her mother had gotten worse again because there was no money for medicine. Sophia cried in the dark alleys of the city, wondering why life was so unfair, why every time she tried to get ahead, something pushed her right back into hell. One night, sitting on the cold step of a clothes shop in Times Square, she heard a voice. Hey, are you Sophia? The one who worked with Mr. Sullivan? She looked up. Standing in front of her was a skinny boy about 17 years old with round glasses and a backpack full of cables and old laptops. His name was Jason, and he was known in the neighborhood for being a computer whiz. He did repairs, recovered data, and knew every corner of the digital world. Yeah, that's me, Sophia said, her voice cracking. Why? Jason sat down next to her. I heard they accused you of stealing info, but I know you. I've seen you at the library. You're no thief. Nobody believes me. I do. And I think that woman set you up. Jason took off his glasses and cleaned them with his shirt. Did she have access to your email? Yeah, Patricia has access to everything. She's the executive assistant. Jason nodded slowly. Then let me investigate. Give me a week. If she framed you, I'm going to find the proof. For 7 days, Jason worked like a man obsessed. He ethically hacked systems, checked server logs, tracked IP addresses, followed digital trails anyone else would have missed, and in the end, he found it. The fake emails had been sent from Patricia's computer. She had used a sophisticated program to make them look like they came from Sophia's user account. She had planted evidence, forged documents, and built a whole web of lies to destroy an innocent girl. Jason printed everything out, put it in a manila envelope, and handed it to Sophia with a triumphant smile. Here it is, champ, the truth. Now go and show them who you really are. Sophia hugged the envelope to her chest, tears of hope falling onto the paper. Thank you, Jason. You're like a brother to me, really. Go kick some butt, Soph. If this story is moving you as much as it moves us to tell it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here we give a voice to the stories the world doesn't want to hear, but that we all need to listen to. And tell us in the comments, have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do? How did you react? Your story could inspire someone else. On Sunday morning, Sophia was standing in front of the huge gates of Richard Sullivan's mansion in the Hamptons. Her hands were sweating as she clutched the manila envelope with the evidence. She had taken the subway and then hitchhiked for 2 hours under the blazing sun to get to that exclusive gated community on the outskirts of the city, where every house looked like a palace and every garden was better kept than a museum. The security guards had looked at her with obvious suspicion as if she were a threat, but she had insisted so much with such desperation in the voice that they finally decided to buzz the intercom. Who is it? Richard's voice sounded tired, irritated, like he'd been woken from a nightmare. It's Sophia Hayes, sir. I need to speak with you. It's urgent. Please, I beg you. A long silence stretched over the intercom. Sophia could hear her own ragged breathing, then a deep sigh. Let her in. And the wrought iron gates opened with an electric hum that resonated like a promise. Sophia walked up the polished stone path, passing by gardens perfectly tended with flowers she had never seen before. Fountains of crystal clear water sparkling under the sun, and marble sculptures that probably cost more than everything she'd ever seen in her entire life. The mansion was gigantic white, like a Greek temple, with imposing columns and massive windows reflecting the blue sky. Richard opened the front door before she could even ring the bell. He was wearing blue Bermuda shorts and a simple gray t-shirt with no visible brand, without his perfectly pressed executive suit, without his Italian tie, without his Swiss watch. He seemed more human, more vulnerable, more real. He had deep dark circles under his eyes that made him look 10 years older, and his hair was messy, as if he'd spent the night sleepless tossing and turning in bed. What do you want, Sophia? He asked. He didn't sound angry. He sounded exhausted, defeated, like a man who had lost something important and didn't know how to get it back. Justice, sir, just that. Sophia handed him the envelope with trembling hands. Please read this. It's the truth. Richard took the manila envelope, opened it slowly, and began to read. With each page he turned, his expression shifted like scenes in a movie, from skepticism to surprise, from surprise to disbelief, from disbelief to a rage so deep and visceral that his hands started visibly shaking. The veins in his neck bulged and his jaw clenched until the muscles tensed like cords. When he finished reading the last page, he stood completely motionless for several eternal seconds, staring at the papers as if they were evidence of an unforgivable crime. My God, he murmured in a hoarse voice. Patricia did all this. She destroyed you deliberately. She ruined your life. Just for what? Professional jealousy? Out of envy, sir. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper filled with pain. Because you praised me, and she felt like I was stealing her spot. Richard stayed silent for a moment that seemed to stretch on for hours. Then he took a deep breath and opened the door all the way, stepping aside. Come in, please. Don't stand out there. Sophia entered the mansion with timid, hesitant steps, feeling like her worn, dirty shoes were staining the perfectly polished Italian marble floor. Every step she took echoed in the silence of that massive house. Richard guided her down a hallway decorated with paintings that looked straight out of a museum until they reached the kitchen. It was huge, bright, with stainless steel appliances that gleamed like mirrors, a black granite center island, and windows overlooking a garden with a pool of turquoise water. Richard opened the giant fridge and took out a cold water bottle dripping with condensation from the plastic, a sandwich wrapped in wax paper, and a red apple so shiny it looked like wax. He put them on the table in front of Sophia. Eat, you look really bad, Sophia. When was the last time you ate something? She hadn't eaten anything solid in 2 whole days. She picked up the sandwich with hands that shook so much she almost dropped it. She unwrapped it and devoured it in seconds, barely breathing, not even chewing properly. The taste of the ham, the cheese, the mayonnaise, the fresh bread, everything exploded in her mouth like fireworks. Tears began rolling down her dirty cheeks as she swallowed every bite. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of a hunger so deep it hurt her very soul. Richard sat across from her at the table, watching her with a look of guilt that weighed on his shoulders like stones. He rubbed his face with both hands and let out a sigh, heavy with regret. What happened after I fired you? He asked softly, almost afraid to hear the answer. Sophia swallowed the last bite of the sandwich, wiped her tears with the back of her hand, and took a drink of water before answering. I went back to the streets, sir, to collect cans under the sun, to sleep in alleyways when I had nowhere else to go. My mom got so much worse because I couldn't buy her medicine. She got so bad that one night, I thought she was going to die in my arms. I had to borrow money from a neighborhood loan shark, a horrible man, who charges 30% interest every week. Now I owe him triple what I borrowed, and I have no way to pay it. And my mom. She cries every night because she thinks it's all her fault. She thinks I lost the opportunity of a lifetime just to take care of her. She tells me I should abandon her, let her die so I can have a future. Richard closed his eyes so hard that wrinkles formed around his eyelids. A single tear rolled down his cheek. My God, Sophia. I I destroyed your whole life because I believed a lie. I ruined everything you had built without even investigating, without giving you the benefit of the doubt. How am I going to forgive myself for this? I just want to be believed, sir. That's all. Sophia's voice cracked completely on the last word. I don't want money. I don't want revenge. I don't want anything else. I just want someone, even if it's just one single person, to tell me that I'm not a thief, that I didn't betray their trust, because that's what hurts the most. Not the poverty, not the hunger. It's that you believed I was capable of doing something like that. Richard reached his big calloused hand across the table and placed it gently over Sophia's small, thin, dirty hand. I believe you with every fiber of my being. I believe you, and I'm going to fix this even if it's the last thing I do in my life. I swear it on my mother, on my daughter, on everything I love. Patricia is going to pay for what she did. Give me 2 days, just 2 days. Monday morning, there will be a complete and exhaustive internal audit. If this is confirmed, and I know in my heart will be confirmed because this evidence is irrefutable, Patricia will be fired. She will be prosecuted, and she will face the full weight of the law. I promise you. Sophia nodded, unable to speak because the lump in her throat was so tight it wouldn't even let air pass through. For the first time in endless days, she felt that maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was coming to an end. On Monday morning at 8 o'clock sharp, a team of 5 forensic auditors specializing in corporate fraud stormed the offices on the 22nd floor like a military squad. They were carrying laptops, cables, external hard drives, and a direct order from the CEO to review absolutely everything. They checked every computer, every server, every email sent and received in the last 4 months. They analyzed access logs, IP addresses, file metadata, and digital footprints on documents. It was a complete and ruthless forensic investigation. Patricia tried to keep her cool for the first 2 hours. She smiled with that cold, professional smile she had perfected over the years. She answered questions with a steady voice, but when the auditors started interrogating her directly about specific discrepancies in the emails, about unauthorized access to other employees' accounts, about forgery software found on her computer, her mask of professionalism crumbled like a house of cards in the rain. She started sweating visibly. She stuttered and contradicted her own answers. Her hands were shaking so much, she had to hide them under the table. By 3 in the afternoon, the audit confirmed everything with irrefutable documentation. Patricia Miller had deliberately falsified evidence. She had planted fake emails using sophisticated identity spoofing software and had deliberately sabotaged Sophia Hayes with the sole purpose of eliminating competition that she never should have seen as a threat because they weren't even in the same professional league. She had committed serious corporate fraud, malicious defamation, and a flagrant abuse of authority. The police arrived at exactly 4:20 p.m. 2 uniformed officers with handcuffs on their belts entered the main lobby where Patricia had been escorted by security. They handcuffed Patricia Miller in front of all the employees who had gathered in dead silence to witness her downfall. She was crying uncontrollably with mascara running down her cheeks. Her perfect hairstyle undone, her blouse wrinkled. She begged between sobs, screaming that it was unfair, that she had only tried to protect the company from an intruder, that that girl didn't deserve to be there because she didn't have a degree, because she smelled bad, because she didn't belong in that world. But no one was listening. The employees watched her with a mixture of pity and contempt. Some shook their heads, others whispered among themselves. Everyone knew the truth now. Before the patrol car drove off, Sophia ran out of the building with her heart beating so hard she felt like it was going to burst out of her chest. The police officers stopped when she approached, gasping for breath from the effort. She walked up to the back window of the squad car where Patricia was sitting handcuffed. Her makeup completely ruined and her eyes swollen from crying so much. She looked like a completely different person from the elegant and powerful woman she had been just days ago. Why? Sophia asked, her voice trembling but firm. I never did anything to hurt you. I never disrespected you. I never challenged you. I just wanted to work, honestly. I wanted to help my mom, who is dying. Why did you do this to me? What did I ever do to make you hate me this much? Patricia looked at her with a complex expression, a strange mix of deep shame, lingering bitterness, and something that might have been remorse. For a long, tense moment, she didn't say a single word. She just stared at Sophia as if she were looking at a twisted reflection of herself. Finally, with a broken voice that was barely audible, She whispered, because you had everything I never did, even though you came from nothing. Natural talent I'll never have, even if I study for 1,000 years. Genuine humility that I lost a long time ago. Richard's true respect, which I chased for 8 years and never got. I worked like a slave for almost a decade just to get crumbs of recognition, to hear a good job every once in a while. And you got it all in a single day. I hated you for it with every cell in my body. And destroying you was the biggest, stupidest, most unforgivable mistake of my entire life. Sophia felt a sadness deep and heavy filling her chest like cold water. But strangely, she didn't feel any rage or desire for revenge. I would have been your friend, Patricia. I would have learned everything you knew. I would have admired you. I would have respected you. We could have worked together. You didn't have to destroy me just so you could shine. Patricia closed her eyes slowly, letting more tears roll down her cheeks. I know that now, but it's already too late to change anything. The squad car started with a roar of the engine, taking Patricia Miller away forever, toward a future of cells, trials, and sentences. Sophia stood still on the concrete sidewalk, watching the police car disappear into the city's chaotic traffic. She felt no victory, she felt no joy for justice being served, only the enormous weight of everything she had lost, and everything she still had to rebuild from scratch. Richard walked out of the building with hurried steps and stood beside her in silence. Both of them watched the noisy street full of honking horns and street vendors for a full minute without saying a word. The afternoon sun hit their faces. Finally, Richard spoke in a soft voice. Come with me. There's something important I want to offer you. They went up together in the elevator to the 22nd floor. The ride-up was silent, each lost in their own thoughts. When the doors opened, Richard guided her to the main boardroom. The entire board of directors was gathered around the huge oak table. 12 executives in impeccable suits, silk ties, and expensive watches. Everyone stood up simultaneously when Sophia entered, as if she were the president of the country. The gesture took her completely by surprise. Richard guided her gently to the front of the room where everyone could see her clearly, under the bright ceiling spotlights. He cleared his throat and spoke in a clear, firm voice, projecting so every word resonated off the walls. Miss Sophia Hayes, he began solemnly, I was deeply unfair to you. I judged you without investigating the evidence. I condemned you without giving you a chance to defend yourself. I destroyed you for no valid reason other than my own negligence and arrogance. And for all of that, I want to offer you something much more important than a simple apology. Sophia looked at him with eyes wide open, her heart beating so fast she felt like she was going to faint. She didn't dare breathe. I want to offer you a permanent official position in this company. Not as a temporary interpreter working day to day, and not as a part-time employee who can be fired at any moment. I want you to be our junior coordinator of international relations starting today. And when you turn 19, in exactly 5 years, the full position of director will be officially yours with absolutely every benefit that implies. A full executive salary, premium health insurance for both you and your mom, with 100% coverage. A savings and retirement fund, and your college tuition paid for at whatever institution you choose. And something even more important to me personally. He paused for a dramatic effect. Everyone in the room sat completely still, hanging on every word. I want you to lead a new scholarship and social inclusion program for talented young people exactly like you. Young people who possess extraordinary abilities but lack the financial resources or opportunities. Because if there is one fundamental thing you have taught me, something that completely changed the way I see the world and business, it's that the true value of a person isn't found in a college degree framed on the wall, nor in expensive designer clothes, nor in a prestigious last name. True value is right here. He pointed to his heart with a clenched fist. In character, in determination, and in the will to keep moving forward against all odds. Do you accept my offer? Sophia couldn't hold back the tears she had been bottling up for days. Tears flowed freely, rolling down her face, uncontrollably dropping onto her worn-out t-shirt. She nodded her head over and over so hard her ponytail bounced, but she was unable to form coherent words because the lump in her throat was just too tight. Finally, after several tries, she managed to whisper in a broken voice, I accept, sir. I accept with all my heart. Thank you. Thank you for believing in me." And the room erupted in thunderous applause. The 12 executives stood up simultaneously, applauding with genuine respect and admiration, some with tears in their own eyes. Sophia looked at them all through, her tear-blurred vision feeling overwhelmed by an emotion she had never experienced in her entire life, true hope solid as a rock. The first few months passed like a beautiful dream that Sophia was afraid to wake up from every morning. She began working officially with a monthly salary that seemed modest to the executives, but that for her represented more money than she had ever seen in her entire life combined. With that sacred money, the first thing she did was get her mother Lucy out of that miserable little room with damp walls and a leaky roof. She moved them into a small but decent apartment in a quiet neighborhood in Queens. 2 bedrooms with real windows, a functional kitchen, and a bathroom with hot water that came right out of the tap without having to heat it on the stove, and large windows that let in the golden sunlight every morning. Lucy received the full medical treatment she had desperately needed for years. Specialist appointments, imported medicines, and rehabilitation. Therapies all covered by the premium health insurance Richard had promised. The doctors, after reviewing all the test results, told them, stating with total seriousness that if they had waited just 2 months more without treatment, it would have been too late. The damage would have been irreversible, but thanks to Sophia, thanks to her relentless fight and her refusal to give up even when all seemed lost, her mother made a full recovery. Color returned to Lucy's cheeks. Her eyes got their sparkle back. Her laughter filled the house once more. Lucy landed an honest job at the same company where her daughter worked in the admin department on the second floor. She didn't make a fortune, but it was a real job with a legal contract, full benefits, and real human dignity. For the first time in over 10 years, mother and daughter could sit down together at their own table in their own apartment and eat a hot meal without worrying where the next day's breakfast would come from. Jason, the computer genius kid with the round glasses and a backpack stuffed with cables, the one who found the proof of Sophia's innocence when nobody else believed in her. He was hired by Richard as a senior cybersecurity analyst. They paid for his entire college education, a 100% scholarship to the best engineering school in the country to study computer systems engineering. Every Friday without fail, Jason and Sophia had lunch together in a bright company cafeteria, sharing burgers and laughing while reminiscing about the dark days when they were both completely invisible to the world. Just 2 poor kids nobody took seriously. And Mrs. Carla, the 52-year-old cleaner who years ago had let a starving, dirty little girl use the company's private bathroom, who had given her hot leftovers when nobody else would even look at her, who had been the only person in the whole building to treat her with basic human respect. She was promoted to general supervisor of facilities. Her salary doubled overnight. Her 3 kids could finally finish high school without having to drop out to work. And every time she saw Sophia walking down the elegant hallways of the company with her briefcase under her arm and her employee badge hanging around her neck, she'd give her a knowing wink and say with motherly pride, "I always knew you were special, my beautiful girl. I always knew it." But Sophia, despite all the success and all the positive changes in her life, never forgot where she came from. She couldn't forget even if she wanted to. Every month, without fail, on the last Saturday, she religiously visited the New York Public Library, where she had learned 6 different languages from old falling apart books, watching free YouTube videos on slow computers, and stealing conversations with foreigners reading alone at the back tables. She brought brand new laptops still in their boxes, high-quality headphones, with noise cancellation, brand new textbooks, and scholarships, full-ride scholarships for kids from rough neighborhoods who were desperate to study but didn't have a single dollar for books. She set up a permanent aid fund that lifted 10 kids out of absolute poverty every year and gave them a full education from elementary school all the way to college without asking for a single thing in return. Months turned into seasons and seasons into years. Every day brought new challenges that Sophia faced with the same determination she had shown when she was collecting cans under the blazing sun. New lessons she soaked up like a dry sponge, and new opportunities to grow professionally and personally. She became a professional who was respected not just in America, but internationally. She traveled to congresses in Paris, conferences in Tokyo, and business meetings in Dubai. She negotiated multi-million-dollar deals in 7 different languages with perfect fluency, but she never lost the essential humility that had defined her since she was a barefoot girl sleeping in alleyways. Exactly 5 years after that day, that changed her life forever. Sophia returned to the dark and smelly alley in Brooklyn where she used to sleep when she had nowhere else to go, when the night caught her without shelter. She had just turned 19. She was wearing a navy blue tailored suit, perfectly fitted low but elegant genuine leather heels, and a professional briefcase that had been a gift from Richard for her birthday. But her eyes were still exactly the same as that scared little girl's, humble, determined, and infinitely grateful to life. She stopped in front of the rusty dented dumpster where, many years ago, she had found her first Arabic dictionary. It was dirty, torn with pages ripped out, but filled with the knowledge that had changed her destiny. She ran her hand slowly over the peeling brick wall where she used to sit for hours studying vocabulary under the yellowish, flickering light of a street lamp. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. Never in a million years did I think I'd come back to this place, she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. Miss Sophia, she turned sharply startled. A girl of about 12 years old was looking at her, with huge dark eyes full of curiosity and something that looked like recognition. She was wearing tattered clothes that were more holes than fabric. Her hair matted and dirty, tied back with a broken hair tie and a clear plastic bag full of crushed cans hanging from her thin shoulder. It was like seeing herself in a magic mirror from the past, a perfect reflection of who she used to be. Do you know me? Sophia asked softly. I saw you on TV, miss. You were on the news. They said you were the youngest director of a big company. The girl spoke shyly, but her eyes were shining with something that might have been hope. Is it really you? Sophia smiled with genuine warmth, crouching down a little, to be at eye level with the girl. Yes, it's me. What's your name? Lily. Lillian, but everyone calls me Lily. That's a very pretty name. Lily, do you go to school? The girl looked down immediately, ashamed, her cheeks turning red. I can't, miss. I have to work every day. My mom is very sick. She has diabetes and can't walk very well. We need money for her medicine and for food. If I go to school, we won't make enough money, and then... Wait a moment. Sophia interrupted gently. She opened her leather briefcase and took out a white business card with embossed gold lettering. She held it out to Lily. Take this very carefully. It's the address of my foundation. It's called Talent Without Borders. Go there tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp. Don't be late. You tell them that I personally sent you. They're going to give you a full scholarship for school with new supplies, uniforms, shoes, a backpack, everything you need. They'll also provide a monthly allowance for your mom so she can buy her medicine without you having to work. Does that sound good? Lily took the card with trembling hands, holding it like a winning lottery ticket, unable to believe that what she was hearing was real and not just a cruel dream. Why are you helping me, miss? You don't even know me. Why are you doing this for me? Sophia crouched all the way down until she was exactly at Lily's eye level. She placed a firm but loving hand on the girl's thin shoulder and spoke to her, looking her straight in the eye with intensity. Because exactly 5 years ago, I was standing exactly where you are, right now collecting cans to survive, hungry, scared, feeling like the whole world had turned its back on me until someone amazing gave me a chance when nobody else believed in me. Just one chance was enough to completely change my life. And now it's my turn to do the same for you and for many others. Your story doesn't have to end in this dark alley, Lily. Your story can end anywhere in the entire world you choose, in any profession you dream of. You just need a fair chance, and I'm going to give it to you. Lily hugged the card against her flat chest so hard her knuckles turned white. She nodded her head repeatedly as the tears began to roll down her dirty cheeks, leaving clean tracks on her face. Thank you, miss. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much this means to me and my mom. I swear I won't let you down. I know, sweetheart, I know. Sophia ruffled her hair affectionately. Now go home. Tell your mom that everything's going to be okay and I'll see you tomorrow at the foundation. Sophia watched as Lily ran away down the alley with the bag of cans bouncing noisily on her skinny back, clutching the card in her fist as if it were a priceless treasure. And she smiled with tears in her eyes because she knew with absolute certainty that she had just changed one more life. And that more than any contract worth millions of dollars, more than any professional recognition, more than any award or medal was what really mattered in this world. That same afternoon, Sophia had to give the most important presentation of her professional life so far. It was officially her first day as the full director of international relations, the youngest in the entire 120-year history of the company, a record that would probably never be broken. When she entered the boardroom on the 25th floor, the most exclusive in the entire building, absolutely everyone present stood up simultaneously to applaud her. 42 executives from the highest positions, international investors, strategic partners, everyone standing clapping for her. Richard was at the front of the room with a smile of paternal pride so genuine, it lit up his whole face. He waited for the applause to die down and then spoke with a powerful voice that resonated throughout the room. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, distinguished investors, he announced with ceremonial formality, I officially present to you our new Director of International Relations, an extraordinary young woman who has taught every one of us a fundamental lesson we never should have forgotten, that true talent isn't born with a silver spoon in its mouth, nor in families with prestigious last names. Talent is born on dusty streets where dreams seem impossible. It is born in homes without electricity. It is born in the empty stomachs of children who refuse to give up. This young woman saved our company not once but countless times, and today she officially begins her career as a leader. Please welcome Miss Sophia Hayes. The applause was deafening, thunderous, unending. Sophia walked to the front of the room with a firm, confident stride, head held high and shoulders back. She was no longer the scared little girl with torn shoes and dirty clothes. She was a consummate professional, a respected leader, living proof that miracles exist when talent meets the right opportunity at the precise moment. She stood before everyone under the bright glow of the spotlights, took a deep breath, and spoke with a clear, steady voice full of conviction. Thank you, everyone. Exactly 5 years ago, I walked into this building with a bag of cans on my shoulder and a dream that seemed completely impossible. Today, I am here because one person decided to give me a chance when no one else would. And my personal and professional vow is to do exactly the same for others who are where I was, because true success isn't measured in millions of dollars earned or contracts signed. True success is measured in lives transformed, in opportunities created, in dreams made real. That is the legacy I want to build. That is the director I want to be. The applause erupted again, louder than before. Richard watched with tears of pride in his eyes, knowing he had made the best decision of his entire business career, because in the end everyone had learned something fundamental, something that would change forever. The culture of that company and many others that would follow its example. Never underestimate anyone. Because of their appearance, their origin, their torn clothes, or their broken shoes, the next genius who will change the world might be collecting cans on your street corner, simply waiting for someone to give them a chance to show their true worth. If this story touched your heart as deeply as it touched ours, to tell it, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We need more people who believe in the transforming power of giving opportunities to those who need them most, to those the system has forgotten. And tell us in the comments which city in this wonderful world you are watching us from. We want to know where those brave hearts are, who still believe in true justice and the miracles of life. Until the next story, friends, and always remember, talent knows no borders, knows no last names, knows no zip codes. It only needs a fair chance to shine. Yeah. To add a touch of the American spirit, Sophia also started a mentorship program where she personally guided young talents through internships, drawing from her own experiences navigating the competitive New York job market. She partnered with local community centers to host free language workshops, emphasizing how mastering languages opened doors in the melting pot of America. In one creative twist during her travels, she negotiated a deal that brought sustainable housing tech from Dubai to affordable projects in urban areas, blending her roots with global innovation.